How does the Canon EOS M6 Mark II compare in relation to ISO noise when put up against the Sony a7C? Guys, welcome. If this is your first time here, my name is Belal Khan. I'm a marketer by profession, media by passion. The two kind of go together. This channel's whole purpose is to help you unleash your creative and make your ideas real. Now, the whole focus of this video is to compare these two cameras. Now, you might be wondering, why are you comparing a Sony full-frame camera to a Canon crop sensor camera? Because in terms of form factor, these are both very similar cameras. So if you'll notice here, in regards to size, they're both very close. Also, the Sony a7C has a crop sensor mode, which is 1.5x. On here. I also wanted to see both cameras are standard picture profiles, straight out of camera. And you guys let me know, because I know when I did this test, similar test comparing the a6400, which you can see over here, there was a noticeable difference in colors in relation to skin tones, in relation to how the noise behaved, how the camera's noise reduction was behaving, because anything above like 6400 ISO on the a6400, I felt like the image looked muddy to me. And so although it was sharper at the lower ISOs, it was smudgy and smeary at the higher ISOs. I wanted to see the difference in terms of, does this hold true with the a7C, a full frame camera in Super 35 mode? I'm gonna just cycle through the ISOs. I'm just double each time, 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, and I'm gonna go up to 25,600. So what you're looking at here is ISO 100 side by side, and pay attention to the noise in the black. And right now, as we go up, I got the blinds wide open, so we'll see how this all compares. In fact, let me get an edge light. So this is ISO 100, and as we progress, pay attention to both the highlights. So I'm gonna just kind of move this over a little bit so you can see the whites as well as the blacks. So let's move this up. We're at ISO 100. Let's go to 200 here. And let's go to 200, bump this up, 200. And so here we are, ISO 200. This is really bright. I'm also losing my ethnicity as the image goes bright. So yeah, this is ISO 200. Do you see a difference in the colors, the skin tone, the noise, and the darks, and as well as how it looks in the bright areas? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and dim the blinds a little bit. All right, so this is still ISO 200. The blinds have been dimmed up, and now let's jump to ISO 400. ISO 400, same thing here. Boom. So now we are at ISO 400, and you'll notice the edge light is going to get a little bit sharper. I'll probably dim that up a little bit as well. So again, this is ISO 400, and again, pay attention to the darks, pay attention to the brights, pay attention to the skin tone, and see how that's looking. Now let's go ahead and jump to ISO 800. 800 on the Canon, and then 800 on the Sony a7C. Again, now I'm already seeing zebras right here on the Sony, as well as on the edge light here. So before we jump to 1600, I'm probably going to dim the edge light a little bit, and I'm going to completely shut off the blinds. So let's go ahead and do that. So here we are. This is just to kind of give you, it's still at ISO 800. Blinds are completely shut. I brought down the edge light to about 20%, and now you'll notice the background's coming in. Again, pay attention to the noise on the black of the shirt, in terms of how the image looks on the whites, and even now look at the noise in the background, the skin tone colors. So far, from what I'm seeing on camera, they're both looking very good. So now let's just bump this up to 1600 on the Canon, and Let's go to 1600 on the Sony. All right, so we're at 1600. And this right here, I think 1600 ISO, regardless of what camera you're on, seems to be the ISO to be at when you're indoors or in a dimly lit situation, or in the shade and things like that. Now, I'm already seeing some zebras on this side, as well as here on the Sony. On the Canon, I don't think I get that option. What will be interesting is when we get a little bit further, I wonder what kind of highlight recovery at high ISOs would look like, but we'll see once it's clearly blown out. So now let's jump to 3200. So 3200 on the Canon, 3200 on the Sony. Ooh, things are definitely blown out. All right, before I jump again, pay attention to the noise on the shirt, the tint of the black on the shirt, tint of the skin tone. Now I'm starting to see a difference in terms of how the skin tones look. The skin tones look significantly warmer on the Canon. Again, I'm at this high ISO in an indoor setting. I am losing my ethnicity. And let me go ahead and dim the edge light a little bit. All right, so now my edge light is actually at 7%. So let's jump to the next level, which is ISO 6400. Boom. So I'll bring this down to 6400. Wow, this is going to be very bright. And 6400 on the Sony. And I'm just seeing zebras everywhere right now. I wonder how much of this stuff I can essentially recover. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and shut off the blinds for the background to bring in the darkness a little bit. This is the ISO, like this room is dark. Right, the room behind me is really dark. In fact, this let me bring it to what the room actually looks like. In fact, the room is realistically, to my eyes, this is what it looks like. Right, ISO 800 is a realistic depiction of how the room looks. But then when I bump it up to 6400. Yeah, everything is just super bright, like as if the window's open, but it's not. In fact, everything is. Let's see how the cell phone captures this, right? And let's see, press record. See, everything's off, right? This is, in fact, what the cell phone is seeing right now is accurate to what my eyes are seeing, right? I got the little edge light there. It's not supposed to be that dark, but even if the cell phone tries to capture it, it's still relatively dark in the background because all the light's been turned off. But yeah, this is what I'm seeing right here. And now let's see if we bump this up again. Now let's go down to 12,800 and 12,800 on the Sony. I'm just seeing zebras all over. And this is looking way overexposed. But I mean, what do you notice in regards to the noise? Pay attention to my shoulder in regards to the blacks. And if I were to recover the highlights from the white areas. So let's turn this over here. How much of that is coming through? Honestly, the only time I would crank up the ISO this high, and the only times that I have, especially on the Canon, is when I'm outside and it is nighttime. So let's go ahead and bump this up again one more time, or in fact 12,800. I think that's the max I can go. So let me take the camera and let's bring it back into darkness. So this is 12,800 ISO. In a dark scenario, let's move away from that and let's go into this spot right here on the couch with a little bit of a purple accent light next to the lamp. And yeah, just pay attention to the noise. How much noise? Do you see a lot of noise? Is the noise how acceptable it is? In fact, you can see the waves in the Canon a little bit because the ISO is not high enough. But yeah, so I'm surprised. I thought I could go higher on the Canon in terms of ISO settings. Turns out I have ISO 25,600 on here, but let's take 16,000 first, right? And if I go on here and I go to 16,000, again, pay attention to the noise in the black, skin tones, noise in the light and the dark. Now let's jump this up to 20,000, just as such. Now, normally on the Canon, I would never go this high because I know for a fact there's going to be a lot of noise, especially in the dark areas. But you know, if you just run it through a passive noise reduction, you know, this is what you end up with. Now let's jump it to 25,600. Boom, 25,600. And I'm already seeing zebras all over the place. And this right here is a really it's a really dim lit moon lamp, and right on here it's going to be super bright. Now let's jump it up to, now this is it, this is the highest, this is going to go 25,600. And now on the Sigma, not the Sigma, the Sony, again, this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to bump up the shutter speed a little bit too. So right now I'm at 1/50. Let's go to 1/80 until 1/100. So now we're at 1/100 in terms of the shutter speed. I'm at ISO 32,000, and let's go to 1/60, right? So this, in fact, looks, in terms of colors, it's still significantly brighter. If I were to brighten things up, bring it down to what I actually see, this is right here. This is close to what I actually see with my own eyes. But we're at 32,000. Let me bring it down to something where, like, this is what I would want to see, and then bump up the ISO again, 40,000, right? ISO 40,000, little moon lamp, just to kind of give it an idea of what things might look like. Bring it down to 51,000 ISO. Again, like, it's already clear. We're at 25,000 here. It's stuck. I can't go any higher. Now 64,000 ISO. Now things are seemingly looking blown out. And let me just go ahead and bump up the shutter speed again to 1/250, 1/320, 1/400. Right now we've definitely got that. Just shut this off. Boom, boom, yellow. And let's go back to the ISO settings. 80,000 ISO. How at this point I'm wondering if the autofocus is still functioning. 80,000 ISO. Again, look at the noise in the darks, in the background, skin tone. On camera, in terms of the LCD, I think it's looking pretty good. And then 100,000 ISO, right? Take a look at the noise. This is crazy, right? This is already 25,000 stuck right here, 100,000. And if we were to, this is shutter over 1/50. If I were to bring the shutter back down to 1/50, this is how blown out it gets, right? Bring it to 1/400, the zebras are gone, right? But if I were to be willing to look at the exposure, right, this is at like +2 exposure, 2 stops overexposed, and yeah. I mean, I'm wondering how the ISO noise is comparable to, let's see, if I were to bring this down also to shutter speed 1/80, this is a little bit more acceptable in terms of how it's looking. But yeah, I'm wondering which ISO noise is comparable to the 25,000 ISO noise here. So this is basically it. What do you guys think? I mean, honestly, right here, the two things that I was curious about in regards to A7C, would it be worth it to keep as a companion to the Sony, to the Canon EOS M6 Mark II versus, or even just replacing it? I mean, the gyro stabilization by itself is like, whoa. And again, the link to that should be here. And now the high ISO capabilities are extra impressive. So let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.